Okay, so welcome to Sunday Poetry, Poetry of Enlightenment. Um, so, today we're going to be playing with some poems by Billy Collins. I think he's the first contemporary poet we've done, a former poet laureate of the United States. Some of you watched that video that I sent you the link to of him reading The Lanyard. How much fun was that? Right? Fun and anyone else notice fun and completely poignant? Right? Because it's not about a lanyard, It's about uh, it's about parenting, and it's about being a child and being a parent, and if you exist, you're the child of a parent. So touching something so universal by looking at this one little funky, unlikely object, the lanyard. So if you haven't seen that, I recommend it. So we're going to look at a few of his poems, and quite a different kind of a shift of gears after our last 2 weeks reading John Donne. Donne is great and brilliant, which is why we bother to deal with him, even though he's difficult, just because the language is 400 years old, and also because he uses it in such kind of tricky ways, these very tricky metaphors and inverted syntax and all this kind of thing. Billy Collins, you don't need a lot of, you know, you don't need me to serve as the acharya. In the Eastern traditions, you never read the texts without an acharya, an instructor at your side to help you understand them and interpret them. But in this case, you'll be doing fine. So let's let's start with this. I'm going to share my screen and hope that this works out. Okay, are you seeing the best cigarette? Yeah. And by the way, you can unmute yourselves to jump into the conversation. And if you've ever smoked, I believe I've done that. I believe I've allowed you all to unmute yourselves. Hold on. No? Okay. Okay. Now you should be allowed to unmute yourselves.
Yes.
Good. Okay. Good. Thank you. Okay. So is everyone seeing the best cigarette?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is especially fun if you've ever smoked, which I used to do a very long time ago. The best cigarette. There are many that I miss, having sent my last one out a car window, sparkling along the road one night years ago. The heralded ones, of course, after sex, the two glowing tips, now the lights of a single ship. At the end of a long dinner, with more wine to come and a smoke ring coasting into the chandelier. Or on a white beach, holding one with fingers still wet from a swim. How bittersweet all these punctuations of flame and gesture. But the best were on those mornings when I would have a little something going in the typewriter. The sun bright in the windows, maybe some Berlioz on in the background. I would go into the kitchen for coffee, and on the way back to the page, curled in its roller, I would light one up and feel its dry rush coating the dark taste of coffee. Then I would be my own locomotive, trailing behind me as I returned to work, little puffs of smoke, indicators of progress, signs of industry and thought, the signal that told the 19th century it was moving forward. That was the best cigarette. When I would steam into the study, full of vaporous hope, and stand there, the big headlamp of my face pointed down at all the words in parallel lines.
Nice.
Oh, wow, that's good. What are you enjoying here? What are you seeing or enjoying?
It's just so evocative. You just
Yeah,
know exactly everything that he's evoking. It's great.
right. Yeah. Now, when you note something like that, when you see, oh, something's working well, and obviously, Yafa, you're very aware of this in your field in filmmaking. When you see, oh man, something really worked, the next question is always, well, how did he make it work? So I can steal that, right? So I can imitate that in my own way, right? Look at the first stanza, these first three lines, because we could speak if we were, what's the difference? What makes it a poem? It doesn't rhyme. There's no meter, right? No regular rhythmic pattern like iambic pentameter or dactylic trimeter or something. Any of those mathematically regular rhythms, such as traditional poetry has, such as Donne has. So no rhyme, no meter, and yet we know it's poetry. Yeah, it's written. It's we see it's the it's straight on the left side and ragged on the right side, so it's set on the page like poetry, and that puts it in units that are not just sentences and paragraphs. It puts it in units that are more subtle than that. They're breath units or thought units or feeling units. But there's something else that has to do with the evocative language, as Yafa said. Um, if this were prose, if this were not poetry, if we were writing an essay, right, on being a former smoker, right, we might talk about the situations. The content might be basically the same. We might talk about the situations where I'd really enjoy a cigarette when I was getting some writing done. Um, but that wouldn't be the same. There's one word in this first stanza that really makes this point, I think. There are many that I miss, having sent my last one out a car window, sparkling along the road one night years ago. What's the word there?
Sparking.
Sparking. Yeah. Oh, and I even read it wrong a couple of times. Right. Sparkling doesn't make sense. Sparking.
Sparking.
Oh man, so much better than what I was seeing. You remember right? Flicking
would,
your lit cigarette out the car window at night. And what does it do? It skips along the road like skipping a stone over the surface of the water, and each time it hits, it sparks.
Yeah.
That's so magical.
Yeah. It just makes it pop.
It makes it pop. It makes it experiential. It makes it not an essay. Sparking along the road one night years ago. Now, what did he really smoke his last cigarette one night in a car? Maybe, maybe not. But when you're an artist, you have license to lie to make the thing work better, right? Because someone, who was it? Was it Marianne Moore? Someone who defined art as true lies. right? You lie about the details if necessary to bring out the deeper human truth here. If we can give the reader the experience, put him in that car at night. By the way, is he driving by himself or driving alone? Don't think.
You assume alone.
You
Alone.
assume you assume alone. You see that he's alone.
Hmm.
I can't tell you how you know that, but you know that.
Yeah.
That's the good. That's good. And it's because of the feeling that he's created. It's a very quiet, dark, alone, um, poignant feeling. And maybe he had time to, when you're alone, you're not caught up in conversation with people or maybe smoking along with you. You got that moment to go, what am I doing here? I got to stop. Right. So if we were writing an essay, we might start with saying, I quit smoking 12 years ago. And, it would be flat. But this is experience. The heralded ones, of course. Interesting word, heralded,
Yeah. Where's that?
right? Heralded. This is like "Hark the Herald Angels Sing,"
Oh,
right?
up the top. Yeah.
Right. The ones that get headlines, the ones that mark some particularly special or memorable situation. After sex, right? This is the proverbial postcoital cigarette. After sex, the two glowing tips, now the lights of a single ship. This sounds like the Mars Saturn conjunction we were just talking about. Right? Right? And look what's being evoked now. Not just the cigarette sparking along the dark highway,
Thank you.
right? But the whole situation of, by the way, is this someone he's been sleeping with for a long time, or is this the first time he slept with this person? Don't think. Just look at what's the image? What's the feeling in your head?
A long time. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say so.
Okay, so you get that. You get that. Maybe the comfort, the familiarity of being with a long time partner might be. I get there's no right or wrong answer.
No,
Yeah.
no, because he says sex after sex,
After sex.
as opposed to
As a-
after making love,
Uh,
the two blah blah blah. No,
uh-huh.
after sex.
Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Um,
And it's
and
the one that people talk about, it's always about, after sex, the first time, or the only time maybe.
yeah. Yeah. See, I suspect it's the first time or only time because of this image. The two glowing tips, of course, the tips of the cigarettes, now the lights of a single ship. That word now it's as if, two things have become one. Like two people who've been separate have now been brought together by this sexual encounter. Interesting, a little echo of John Donne, right? If with his image of the compasses, if they, are two souls therefore which are one, right? Or if they be two, they are two, so as stiff twin compasses are two. These same kinds of themes, these same motifs, how they come down through the centuries in the tradition of poetry, but in these different forms. Right. So that's one kind of heralded cigarette, this postcoital cigarette. At the end of a long dinner with more wine to come and a smoke ring coasting into the chandelier, you feel the leisure of that, the comfort, just that feeling of everything is fine, right? This is why people spend money at a good restaurant. You get that kind of quasi enlightened feeling, right? That feeling of everything's fine. I got nowhere to go. I'm not in a hurry. The smoke ring coasting into the, that word coasting is so perfect. Or on a white beach, holding one with fingers still wet from a swim, right? And how different that is from the feeling of being, you know, warm and cozy in the bed with the lover or in the restaurant. But that's special in its own way. That also is making you feel the sharpness of being alive. How bittersweet all these punctuations of flame and gesture. But the best were on those mornings when I would have a little something going in the typewriter. Of course, in the age of computers, you couldn't write that line anymore. Maybe some Berlioz on in the background. I would, you know, presumably one of his favorite composers. I would go into the kitchen for a coffee, and on the way back to the page curled in its roller, I would light one up and feel its dry rush coating the dark taste of coffee. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's so perfect. I mean, what a great writing. If you hadn't already read that line, this would be a great writing assignment. In one line, and, you know, 6 or 7 or 8 simple words, describe the experience of the first drag on a cigarette. Right? Now it's hard to think of a way to improve on that. That dry rush coating the dark taste of coffee. Then I would be my own locomotive, trailing behind me as I returned to work, little puffs of smoke, indicators of progress. Yava and I, you know, I've been working away on my book in the one end of the house, and she's been working away on editing a TV show in the other end of the house. And we both were talking about the good old days when you do that stuff, and you just there's something about it smoking away that just seemed so right. But no,
But we
no
don't do
more.
that anymore.
We don't do that anymore. No, no, no.
Long, long gone.
Yes, that was many years ago. There we go. Got to go to the next page. All right. Signs of industry and thought. The signal that told the 19th century it was moving forward. Okay, then there's the leap. There's the leap. It's all been so personal up to now. It's all been about his own experience. And then he takes this leap into this metaphor where now the puffing of the smoke as he's, okay, I'm going to make progress on writing this poem, is now I'm a locomotive, right? I'm like the little engine that could, right? I think I can, right? And then from there, he expands that into another leap, right? He starts thinking about, and this is what a poet will do. Okay, what are the directions I can go from here? How can I use this? Like in the last time or 2 times before when we read the valediction forbidding mourning, and we could imagine John Donne sitting there with a pair of compasses, going, okay, and just playing with it. Okay, let's see. When this one leans, this one part leans toward it, and there's this thing when the one in the center slips and it screws up your circle. All the ways that and now how can I use this? How can I use this? So here's Billy Collins doing the same thing with this image of the locomotive. When was the locomotive invented? Right, the 1830s, 1840s. That's the thing that was the equivalent of the computer. Now of just completely revolutionizing commerce and the economy and relations. Can you imagine that for all of human history, until the mid-19th century, the distance between places was defined by how far you could walk in a day, or if you were a little more prosperous, how far you could ride on a horse in a day. That defined human distance. That defined who you did commerce with, who who you could, how big was your range where you could go courting, looking for people to marry, all of that. And then all that was revolutionized in a couple of years.
And in the last page, he uses the word progress.
Yeah, progress. And, there's the assumption there that all that change is good. It's progress. It's progress. You get at the time that the locomotive comes in, you get people like Thoreau questioning, is this really making things better? Actually, the two things people were excited by was the locomotive and the telegraph. The telegraph, how magical is that? Where for the first time you could have instantaneous communication hundreds of miles away. And Thoreau has a line about that, something about, now Texas and Maine can speak over electrical lines, but perhaps Texas and Maine don't have anything very interesting to say to one another.
Right. It's just strange.
And certainly we can apply that to all our internet technology, right? Now we can have instant access to all the information in the world through a little shiny magic shingle that lives in your pocket, and or read political rants and look at cat videos. The signal that told the 19th century it was moving forward. That was the best cigarette. When I would steam into the study, right? You can see him just, all right. And if you've ever tried to write anything, right? You really, if you're trying to write anything interesting, it means you have to do something that's never been quite done before. And
Or
that
any kind of art.
any kind of art, making a film, making a painting, any kind of art. Absolutely. Thank you. So if it's going to be at all interesting, it's got to be something that's never been done before. And that means you don't know if it can be done. That means you need to, anything that can give you this feeling of, okay, here we go. I'm steaming into the study. And then this next line, full of vaporous hope. Now, this word vaporous is so hilarious, right? Because on the literal level, he's talking about the smoke, the steam, the vapor. But what else does it mean? Vaporous.
Right, you just froze
Yeah.
for a minute.
Okay, am I back? Am I back? Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So vaporous means, when it's here 1 minute, it's gone the next. Vaporous is the root of the word evaporate. So even in the moment that he's celebrating, okay, here I go, ready to go, I'm all full of hope. Even in the moment, there's this ironic dark side of it that, it may be, this hope may be really overblown. Full of vaporous hope, and stand there, the big headlamp of my face pointed down at all the words in parallel lines. Boy, so great. And the words in parallel lines, it's like, orderliness. I'm making sense of this thing. I'm making sense of this. And there's a little bit of an evocation of railroad tracks, right? Railroad tracks are parallel lines, right? It's like we're laying the tracks across the country. We're building the great transcontinental railroad here. We're getting there. Wish us luck. Okay, that's fun. Anything else about this one? Okay. Okay. Let's do another one. Oh my God, I love this. Questions about angels.
We're not seeing it yet.
Oh, you're not?
Nope.
Yep.
You seeing it now?
Nope.
No?
Not yet.
Huh. Okay, let me try it this way.
Yes.
Okay, good. The one thing I just want to, before I read this one, make sure everyone's familiar with. Is everyone familiar with the old saying, "How many angels can dance on the head of a pin?" Right? Okay.
Right.
So it's an old. It comes from an old medieval philosophical question that has to do with the fact that angels are never defined, apparently, in the scriptures as having any definite size. We don't know if an angel is, 1 millimeter in size or hundreds of miles in size. So somehow that some philosopher posed the question in that form, which kind of has gone into our culture. So Billy is going to play with that. Questions about angels.
You froze again.
You got me now?
Yes.
Okay, we're good. Of all the questions you might want to ask about angels, the only one you ever hear is how many can dance on the head of a pin. No curiosity about how they pass the eternal time, besides circling the throne, chanting in Latin, or delivering a crust of bread to a hermit on earth, or guiding a boy and girl across a rickety wooden bridge. Do they fly through God's body and come out singing? Do they swing like children from the hinges of the spirit world, saying their names backwards and forwards? Do they sit alone in little gardens, changing colors? What about their sleeping habits, the fabric of their robes, their diet of unfiltered divine light? What goes on inside their luminous heads? Is there a wall these tall presences can look over and see hell? If an angel fell off a cloud, would he leave a hole in a river? And would the hole float along endlessly, filled with the silent letters of every angelic word? If an angel delivered the mail, would he arrive in a blinding rush of wings? Or would he just assume the appearance of the regular mailman and whistle up the driveway reading the postcards? No, the medieval theologians control the court. The only question you ever hear is about the little dance floor on the head of a pin, where halos are meant to converge and drift invisibly. It is designed to make us think in millions, billions, to make us run out of numbers and collapse into infinity. But perhaps the answer is simply one. One female angel dancing alone in her stocking feet. A small jazz combo working in the background. She sways like a branch in the wind, her beautiful eyes closed, and the tall, thin bassist leans over to glance at his watch because she has been dancing forever. And now it is very late, even for musicians.
Oh,
That's just sublime. Mm.
yep.
Okay. This is the kind of thing that makes me A, want to write poetry, and then B, say, no, why bother?
Yeah.
It's, someone's already done it this well. Ah, I hardly even want to talk about this. It's so perfect. Any thoughts or questions or reactions? You get the second stanza is, this is like the traditional stuff. This is a lot of the really kind of old school Catholic stuff. The old legends delivering, where the angel delivers a crust of bread to a hermit or guides the boy and girl across the rickety wooden bridge. If you read the old lives of the saints, stuff like that's going on all the time. But, why that's all lovely, but why limit ourselves to it, right? Think about what does it mean to be an angel? What can that, it's kind of like a human, but kind of with these divine qualities, with kind of like human, but without the human limitations, somewhere mediating between earth and this celestial realm. That just opens all these possibilities. So let's play with them, right? Do they fly through God's body and come out singing? Do they swing like children from the hinges of the spirit world, saying their names backwards and forwards? Do they sit alone in little gardens, changing colors? A really good poem like this, or good film, or good musical composition, or painting, or anything, when we see its final shape, that final shape seems inevitable. It seems like it must have just fallen off the tree like this, right? A couple of weeks ago, Yaffa quoted a line to me from Walter Murch, who is the great, just one of the gods of film editors and sound editors also. And he said, good editing makes a film look like it was directed well. Great editing makes a film look like it wasn't directed at all. Right? So when you're the poet, of course, you have to be your own editor. So we can imagine that Billy Collins sat there brainstorming all these different fun things you could imagine angels doing. Maybe he came up with 20 or 30 and then found whatever we have here, 8 or 10 that work the best, and that, you start to get a sense of what kind of sequence are these things looking for. How can we say, why does this one come first and then this one and then this one? I can't tell you why, but I guarantee you, if you take those and move the order around, it won't feel as right. The subtle shape of it, the rhythm, the cadence of it won't work as well. What about their sleeping habits, the fabric of their robes, their diet of unfiltered divine light? And who but Billy Collins has that kind of combination of just deep, great, cosmic, poignant stuff and hilarious. Is there a wall where these tall presences, and notice a little hint of rhyme here, is there a wall where these tall presences can look over and see hell? And that's hilarious and also poignant. It's like this is poignant, but then hilarious in the aftertaste. And this one is like hilarious and then poignant in the aftertaste. Oh yeah, we're enjoying this idea that there is something like angelic life. There's something like heavenly life. Gee, does that mean there might be something like the received version of hell life? What about all those souls? Right? I love this. If an angel delivered the mail, would he arrive in a blinding rush of wings? But can't you just see that and hear it? Or would he just assume the appearance of the regular mailman and whistle up the driveway reading the postcards? Right? And notice, not walk up the driveway whistling, but whistle up the driveway, right? Because it works. That's why, because it works. Because try it the other way, it doesn't work as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
No, the medieval theologians control the court. And there's a little bit of a pun there. You know, controlling the court, that's like thing out of basketball. You know, who's got the ball, who's controlling what's going on in the court. But also it's like the court, you know, like a court of law, what's going to be decided here. The only question you ever hear is about the little dance floor on the head of a pin. Da, 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 da. It is designed to make us think in millions, billions, to make us run out of numbers and collapse into infinity. And, you know, if we're looking for some real explicit Dharma, we get it here, right? All of our vastness, all of our artistically created vastnesses are there to hint at, you know, all our big, you know, here's Han Solo, here's Luke Skywalker blowing up the Death Star and the giant, all that giant stuff, and the you know, it's to hint at infinity. To make us, designed to make us run out of numbers and collapse into infinity, right? So that's one approach to the infinite, like that which is beyond the highest numbers. But perhaps the answer is simply one. That's the other approach to infinity. It's just one, any one thing, if you look at it and get into it and get into the beauty of it and the poignancy of it and the intimacy of it. Oh, this is the infinite right here. You don't have to go toward beyond millions and billions and gazillions. Perhaps the answer is simply one. One female angel dancing alone in her stocking feet. A small jazz combo working in the background. So notice how he slows down the pace here. Now he's going to give us a scene. He's been giving us these little glimpses of scenes, but now we're gonna linger here. This is we've been going along. It's like we've been driving along in the poem, looking out our window at this scene. Now we're coming to the cul-de-sac. A small jazz combo working in the background. She sways like a branch in the wind, her beautiful eyes closed, and the tall, thin bassist leans over. Look how he makes it specific. Specific works. The tall, thin bassist leans over to glance at his watch, because she has been dancing forever, and now it is very late, even for musicians. There's
Wow.
a lovely documentary film called A Great Day in Harlem. And it's about a photograph. This whole film is about a single photograph that was made, I think, in 1953. Downbeat magazine, which is a jazz magazine, used to, every year they would have their downbeat poll of, okay, who are the greatest jazz musicians? Like if you're going to make your dream jazz orchestra, who would be the leader, who would be on piano, who would, right? And this one year they decided they would try to get all the winners of the downbeat poll and pose them together for a photograph. So they arranged to do it on the steps of a brownstone in Harlem. And the call was for 10 a.m. And fortunately, one of the musicians, I forget who, had a little, you know, one of those little silent Brownie 8mm home movie cameras. And his footage was preserved, so they used that in the document. It's just a delightful documentary. You might want to take a look at it. And at one point they're talking about, I forget which musician, when he showed up, you know, for the 10 a.m. call, and he said, I didn't know there was 2 10 o'clocks in a day.
Just the way he says that.
So that's about musicians' hours, right? That's about musicians' hours. So what a lovely, lovely way to define eternity. Now it is very late, even for musicians. You know, so hilarious and somehow so touching for reasons that I can't even explain.
Yeah.
And
But-
even her in her stockinged feet,
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
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 Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And the tall, thin bases. I can see this guy. I
Sure.
can see this guy.
With long fingers.
Yeah.
Long, yes, the long fingers. He has a long face. He's black. And he glances at his watch. It's great. Okay. We got 4 minutes. I'm going to read one more poem. I'm not going to say anything about it because we're running out of time, because this one is always too devastating for me to talk about. I'm already choking up just thinking about it. Okay. Can you all see this? The dead?
No, I think you have to go out of
Yeah,
the
it's weird.
screen
It's not
share
so-
first.
It's not supposed to work that way, but I guess it do. Okay. You all
Yes.
seeing that now?
So small.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, that's
There we go. Okay. And, you know, we're all of an age here where we've all had people we've loved who've died. That's all I'm going to say. The dead are always looking down on us, they say, while we are putting on our shoes or making a sandwich. They're looking down through the glass-bottom boats of heaven as they row themselves slowly through eternity. They watch the tops of our heads moving below on earth. And when we lie down in a field or on a couch, drugged perhaps by the hum of a warm afternoon, they think we are looking back at them, which makes them lift their oars and fall silent and wait, like parents, for us to close our eyes.
Mm.
Yeah. Yep. By the way, you can find all this stuff online, and there's a lot more of it. I think we are not going to have a session next week because it's Christmas week, and I'm not sure about the week after because it's New Year's weekend. But I'll be sending out newsletters in any case, so you'll know what's what.
Yeah.
Okay. So enjoy. Thank you. And
Happy holidays,
happy
everybody.
holidays, everyone.
Yes.
Happy holy days. And
Thank you.
run out, if you're on the West Coast, run out and see the
Oh yeah.
conjunction.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
you.
Happy holidays.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Nice to
For
see you all.
sure. I'm glad